I didn't even get to take one because everybody took them. So great. That's a blessing. All the taco cards were taken, the items purchased and turned in. That's wonderful. And I'm thankful to the Lord for our church family getting behind this. And we look forward to what the Lord will have Saturday and Sunday morning. After the service on Sunday, the whole church is invited to a meal over in the fellowship hall. So please plan on staying for a taco type, burrito type, I don't know exactly what it is, a fiesta, and we'll enjoy a meal together over in the fellowship hall. We want to interact with any guests that are here as well. So step out of your comfort zone and meet and greet those folks who are here. We want to be a blessing to them. All right. Just a note, I was texting back and forth with Pastor Austin, who is preaching this week at Southland Christian Camp in Louisiana. And he said, I'll admit, going into the week, I was very nervous. It's his first time doing a camp like this, speaking, and he's doing the junior camp. He said there's between 130 and 140 young people, which is a good crowd. He said that last night there were 30 that responded at the invitation, 2 making professions of faith, and so a lot of good decisions. And he said, pray for me tonight because he will be preaching the gospel. That's a gospel emphasis here tonight. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers this evening, that the Lord would use him there. I think that's a neat opportunity for him. All right. I think that's all the announcements that we have. We'll come back to our prayer list, prayer requests after the Bible study here tonight and before the business meeting. So we're in Genesis 34 tonight, Genesis 34 in our scriptures. By the way, there is no midweek service next week because of the holiday. So just note that if you show up here, you may be the only one. You can come in if it's open and have a Bible study out there. That'd be fine. But due to the holiday, there's no midweek service next week. Genesis 34. We are really at a transitional phase in the book of Genesis now. You're phasing out of more of the early patriarchs into now branching out into Israel, right? There, you'll even see the group, Jacob's sons referred to as Israel, right here in chapter 34, kind of getting the sense of a nation being built and them even acting like a nation, almost going to war here in chapter 34. So this is a time where you go almost from a family into a nation, even though you still, through the rest of the chapter, you'll see the family dealt with all the way through the life of Jacob's kids that we'll see coming up. But in chapter 34, we have really a sad situation that occurs here. And it has to do with a family member, Jacob's daughter, whom he had through Leah, his wife. And so her brothers step up because dad didn't. And I think you're going to see certain common traits in the sons that you saw in the father. On Sunday, we had my sister here, and my sister Jill. She is how many months younger than me? She's 16 months younger than me. And so she lives in Chicago and staying at our house. And we left early that morning, and I left certain things out for pancakes. I said the pancake batter is in the refrigerator and so forth. Well, I did that by way of a sticky note and writing a note to her. Hey, Jill. And I explained what was going on. She said, I took a picture of that and sent that to our other sister, Jen, and said, doesn't this look like Dad? Something Dad would do. I thought, oh, I guess a chip off the old block. But isn't that interesting? That's how it seems things go. You learn certain things from your parents. Your dad does this, and you end up doing it. And that's a good thing. You know, often we pick up bad traits from our parents or things that we wouldn't necessarily like. You might say, well, my mom was a screamer, and I'm a screamer too, a yeller or whatever. One of my favorite attributes about my mother now, it wasn't a favorite when I was a kid, was my mom was a avid fan. Okay, do you know what that means? That means she knew how to cheer us on, and she would yell. She's encouraging, but her voice could be heard throughout the whole arena in hockey, and we'd look at Mom like, Mom, and she'd look at us and scold us like, I paid for their ice time. I can say what I want, kind of a thing. And now I look as a parent and I say, Mom's right. She is a great fan, cheered us on, was a great blessing, and I'm thankful for that. I am more passive-aggressive than my mother. I'm a little bit more afraid of what people might think of me than she was. She just let it all out, and I love her for it. But anyway, there are certain traits that we pick up from our parents, and we'll see that here tonight in Genesis 34. It says, and verse 1, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. So this is in Canaan. So she goes into the city of Shechem, and she goes to see some of these ladies. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. Another way to put that is he raped her. This is against her will. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spake kindly unto the damsel. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, get me this damsel to wife. Sounds a little bit like Jacob's brother, doesn't it? And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give him to wife. And make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully. There's a word that goes with what they had grown up seeing in their grandfather and father, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this will we consent unto you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised, then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then will we take our daughter, and we will be gone. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man deferred not to do the thing. In other words, he didn't delay to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. What does that mean? It means that he was a man that was considered a respectable individual in his community. And so they looked with favor on him in that community. And so then we'll get into the final verses in just a moment. But let's look at this here tonight. We're going to look at the dangers of associating with the world. And really, we have to start here in our text back in chapter 33. So go back to chapter 33, if you will, and look at verse 18. It says, and Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padanaram and pitched his tent before the city, or just outside the city. I want us to consider something, the effects of decisions. How did the decision of Jacob in chapter 33, verse 18, affect the future of his family? Note the information given in verse 18. Land of Canaan pitched his tent before the city. Now we know a lot here because we've read chapter 34, but what kind of an impact did that decision have on the family? Yes. That's right. So Canaan was known for its wickedness. God had even called out these individuals not to marry the Canaanites, but to travel back to their homeland and to marry women because of the wickedness of these people. And here he pitches his tent. Now, why might he have pitched his tent there? I mean, just give some reasons, maybe practical reasons that you can think of. Why did he stop there? Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, good point. It's always easier to camp near a town, right? You have food available. You have company available. You have all sorts of things that are readily available to you. Yes.
Well, use the same reasoning why he couldn't go with his brother Esau so far. I've got to stop here so my family and my cattle can rest.
Okay, good. Exactly. I've got to stop here so my family and cattle can rest. Yeah, I think that's a very strong reason there, because remember, he's traveled probably 400 to 500 miles with the family, a young family, and a whole bunch of cattle. And that's a long way. And so he's making his way, and here's this place. It's not far where he had camped when he wrestled with the Lord and made his way across the Jordan there into Shechem. And so it would have been another day's journey to get to where his father was, which he'll eventually get to when his family has disobeyed and done something that would affect the family greatly. And so really you see the effects of decisions that are made, and I think something valuable that we can all learn from. When we make major decisions, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think about this. When I make a major decision, often what I will do is I'll get tunnel vision. If I'm going to buy something that's very expensive and I really want it, okay, let's just say I need to buy a new vehicle. Dealers are very wise to know somebody who is looking to buy something, especially if they're a motivated buyer. And they're going to get every dime out of you that they can. They're going to check to see if you're pre-approved and how much you're pre-approved for. And then they're going to upsell you all day long. The best thing you can do is go into a dealership with a wad of cash. And don't go in saying you're going to finance something, because they'll take you to the bank on that one. But all I'm saying is what will happen is you'll get this tunnel vision, and you won't see maybe, how this will affect other things in your life if you make a decision like this. I remember buying our house years ago, and I remember, we felt the pressure. We got to buy a house. The market was really starting to take off in the end of 2003 and 2004. If we would have bought our house 3 or 4 months earlier, I think it would have been $20,000 less. And so we were feeling the pressure. We got to buy right now. And I remember my father-in-law just saying, let's keep looking. This maybe isn't the best thing out here. And we were like, no, we got to just pull the trigger and do this, because we were led to believe that's what we needed to do. And what do? You get this tunnel vision. This is what I should do. This is what I want. And maybe in Jacob's situation, he was thinking, I just want to rest. I just want my family to have, ease for a change. I just want us to be a family here in this place and in this time. And I think that decision had an effect on his life. And so I think we can come to this place: when making major decisions, be sure to consider the reaching effects of such decisions. How will the community affect my family? So if you're going to move somewhere, how is this community going to affect my family? Is there a good church in the community? If you say, well, this is a once-in-a-lifetime job opportunity, and they're going to move me here, and I'm going to be making, what I've always been hoping I'd make, and you find out there's not a church within a good gospel-preaching church that your family could unite with within an hour. How do you view that? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to say, yeah, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Is your child's well-being and your spiritual well-being more important than your dream? If it's not, then you have to ask yourself, am I indulging in idolatry? And I think we need to make decisions based on the Lord and not based on dreams of what I want or I hope to have someday, that I think that will make me happy. Because as my father-in-law has shared with me more than once, the most wealthy people he's known personally are the most unhappy people he's ever known. That wealth does not bring happiness. So when making major decisions, be sure to consider the reaching effects of such decisions. And don't be driven by desire, right? What does the text tell us Dinah was doing in verse 1? What was she doing here? She went out to see the daughters of the land. What did she do? Yeah. Okay. She was mingling with them. Now, let's just remove the Canaanite, perspective. Is this an uncommon thing for a young lady to want to do? No, it's not, right? To have friends and to be around other young ladies. I mean, look, Dinah's surrounded by a whole bunch of guys. Her brothers are all over the place, and they take care of cattle, and so they probably stink pretty bad too. And boys are boys, right? I'm surrounded by girls all the time, so I'm on the other side of that. But yeah, Sue, what were you going to say? Yeah, and so she's going out, but to hang out with some of the ladies. But I think Beth brings out a very good point that it was with the Canaanites, right? She's going into a place to interact there with the Canaanites. Who was Shechem according to the text? Okay, what else? Thank you, Captain Obvious there. What else do we know about him according to the text? He was what? A prince, meaning most likely he was a person that was viewed respectably in the community. I think I've seen it elsewhere translated a chieftain, so somebody that had some sort of power. Whatever, chieftain and prince aren't much different to me. It means that people respected him and looked up to him. What seemed to drive this young man? Okay, lust, desire, right? Sees this young lady, marriageable age. She must be beautiful. He wants her. She's even not from around here, so she's a fresh face, right? And so he wants her, and so he has her, because he apparently gets what he wants. And he is indeed, it seems like he is driven by desire, because you see, what phrase do you see, did you notice that kept coming up? Get me this damsel to be my wife. You just kept seeing it in the text. And what does that show you? That shows this guy is driven by his desire. He doesn't care about her. He just cares about himself and what he wants. Now we have leading or politicking. You decide based on what we see here in the following verses. Verse 5 tells us that Jacob heard about his daughter being defiled. What do you make of his reaction? Look at verse 5. Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with the cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. Okay, I'm just curious. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Barry said not only did he not protect her, but he didn't seem to have the reaction that a father who loves a daughter, you would just assume would have, right? I mean, wouldn't you be, I know myself, I'd be livid. I would be willing to be thrown into jail for the rest of my life for what I would do to the person who did that to my daughter. I mean, that's my fleshly response, right? That's how a dad feels about his daughters. Yes.
I have been accused by my daughter, and it was hard to believe, that I am slightly overprotective.
Ah.
And of course, now she's married, that overprotectiveness has gone down a couple notches, not all the way, but
Sure.
I couldn't see somebody doing this to my daughter. I mean, there were guys at Bob Jones that were using her to meet some of her roommates, to spending time with her for ulterior motives.
Mm.
And she said, "Are all men like this?" And I'm trying to tell her, no, they're not. And then she found Clark.
Yeah. And the rest is history. Now Clark protects her, right? That's good. Yeah, what's that? That's good. But yeah, I think I read that and my opinion of Jacob goes down, right? Not that I have a super high opinion of Jacob anyway. He hasn't helped me much there. But I think if anybody looked at my life as intricately as we look at Jacob's life, you'd probably feel the same about me. But yeah, how could Jacob have led his family at this point? Look at verse 6. Consider verse 6 when you answer. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. How do you think Jacob could have led his family at this point? What could he have done? Okay, take the lead, but what could he have done? Okay, good. Yeah, he should have been the one going to them, not waiting for them to come to him. And then when he does that, what could he have demanded? Yes. He could have said, you either hand him to me or I am going to hunt him, right? For what he has done to our family. And if it's not done by such and such, there'll probably be a war, that breaks out, which ended up breaking out in a very conniving way. But yeah, I really think Jacob could have led his family here and shown them how you respond in a situation. I think he could have prayed, said, Lord, what do I do? There's no indication of that happening here. But I think we would all have said he would have been justified in saying to Hamor here when they communed, your son defiled my daughter, and I require his life for that. I don't think that would have been too much to ask, and I think he would have been leading his family in doing so. Were Jacob's sons wrong in their anger? It says, verse 7, and the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, very angry, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. Okay? So, were Jacob's sons wrong in their anger? Okay, good. Right. This question is carefully crafted, right? We're looking at their anger here. They weren't wrong in being really angry. And when we evaluate even our own emotions and situations, God's given us emotions for a reason, right? So if something happens to somebody that we love dearly, like in this situation, it talks about here, they're defiled, okay? She was raped. It's going to stir up a certain feeling. It's what we do with that feeling, right? That really defines our character. It shows what we are. It shows who we're committed to the family member, committed to the Lord, committed to whomever, right? Or committed to ourself. I don't want to stir the pot. This is why I asked the question: is he leading or is he politicking here? It sure does seem like Jacob doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. So there's nothing wrong with Jacob's sons being angry about this, being very wroth. It's what comes next. Taking matters into their own hands. And what do we see next? We see feeding the anger. Do you find any remorse in Hamor for the sin of his son? Verse 8, and Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you, give him to wife. Do you see any remorse there? There's none. What does he try to use instead to entice Jacob's family in verses 9 and 10? Okay, a dowry, right? He's trying to say, look, just come and be with our family and our wealth, we'll share wealth with each other and everything will be great, right? That's the whole approach, right? We're just going to be one big happy family together, which he found didn't work too well when he was with his father-in-law. Yes, Clark. Sure does. Yeah, and I think that's being in leadership positions. You usually get whatever you want. It doesn't seem like there's been a lot of pushback in their lives, right? Shechem especially, get me, her to be my wife, right? I mean, just the language there indicates that here's a kid who gets whatever he wants, right? He's an entitled brat, is what he is. Yes. No, so he wants her to wife. She goes back home. How does the word get to Jacob? Well, the word's going to get to Jacob through Dinah, right? She's going to communicate that. I mean, that's what I think we're led to assume in a situation like this. And she's going to be under the protection of home. But he wants her. He wants her back. Man, she pleases me. I really like her. Get me her, that I can have her as my wife. Yes, very much so. Yep, Samson. Yep. It's being driven by desire, right? Shechem comes across as desperate, right? In verses 11 and 12. And Shechem said unto her father and unto the brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me, I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, that I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. Comes across as pretty desperate, doesn't he? And was there any acknowledgement of his sin? And may that have helped at all if he had said, I should have never did what I did to Dinah? I mean, it probably is not going to help the brothers much. It's too late for that. But I think it would have helped our opinion of them in reading this afterward. But we don't see that here, do we? We don't see any remorse. And so that stirs, I think, the brothers up even more as to where they are. There's just this feeding of the anger. I think as they talk to him, it just kind of gives them more and more desire to lash out. Okay, so then we have the family tradition. So what does Dad normally do in a situation like this? Well, he deceives. So we see that here in verse 13. The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister, and they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. So they're using the tradition of the family to get what they want. Are you surprised by the deceit of Jacob's sons? No. Right, exactly. So not only did Jacob, but who else taught them to be deceitful? Laban. Yes, the mother. I mean, right, everybody in their lives has been deceitful. So this is what they're learning. This is what they're experiencing. And so we shouldn't be surprised that they use the same crafty approaches their dad would use or their grandfather would use. How did the boys play off of Shechem's desire? I mean, there is great worldly wisdom here. And really, they're salesmen. They're really good salesmen. They're looking for what interests him, and so they're going to play off of that. Okay, you want this so bad? Get circumcised. And then, everything will be fine. So in this section of the account, verses 7 to verse 18, you'll see an absence of the Lord. You'll see the allowance of emotion to direct decision-making. So we allow the emotion to direct our decisions, and deceit on both sides. You're going to see it both on Hamor and Shechem's side. You're going to see it on Jacob's family's side. So you see that verse 7 to 18 if you study it on your own, and we're not going to spend a lot of time in this, but you don't see the presence of the Lord, right? If you read those verses, you're not going to see it. And the Lord said, and they turned to the Lord and asked the Lord. You don't see any words like that. There's an absence of the Lord. There's an allowance of emotion to direct decision-making. They're angry, and so they become, my anger is going to direct how I make decisions. And then you're going to see deceit. So these three different characteristics come into this family and their decisions. Okay, now they have to convince the city. So how did Shechem respond to the plan? Verse 19. And the young man deferred not, or he didn't delay to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. So he didn't delay. He was respected in Hamor's house. How did he respond to the plan? I mean, how might you say just put it into a few words. He thought it was what? He thought it was fine. Thought it was a great idea, right? I mean, maybe not a great idea, but he was willing to do it. So he was willing to sacrifice a little bit for this young lady. Okay, how did Hamor and Shechem convince the inhabitants of the city? Okay, you see people playing off of one another again. Verse 20. Hamor and Shechem, his son, came unto the gate of their city and communed with the men of their city, saying, These men are peaceable with us. He didn't know anything. Therefore, let them dwell in the land and trade therein. For the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be circumcised, as they are circumcised. So this is the one thing that we have to do. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. So what is he playing off of? Greed, right? So you see all sorts of desires driving these people, right? You see greed driving them. You see lust driving them. You see revenge is driving the brothers. So everybody's being driven by something, and people play off of that. And it's the way some people manipulate others. Husbands can manipulate wives. Wives can manipulate husbands. Children can manipulate their parents. Parents can manipulate their children. Pastors can manipulate their churches based on the desire of the people. And we have to be aware of what's going on and see if people are playing off of our weaknesses. That's what Satan does. That's what Satan does in your life. If you have a weakness, he is going to pursue that weakness. If you have a problem with the eye gate, he is going to expose you to all sorts of things that you will see. If you have a weakness when it comes to romanticism, okay, relationships, he is going to make those kind of relationships really stand out to you. He's going to make different reading about that really come into your visibility so that you put yourself into a position to be in a situation like that. Satan plays off of weakness. Often he uses other people to do that. We see that right here. How did they do it? Convincing them. Now, verse 24, unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearkened all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of the city. How did they do at convincing them? They did very well. And I don't know that they knew what they were getting into, but they did. And so that leads us to really revenge. This was the whole plan by the boys. I can imagine when they heard, they got together and they had conversations about what we're going to do to these uncircumcised people. Why does revenge appeal to humanity? Why does the Lord have to say, vengeance is mine, I will repay? Why is it so appealing?
We take things in our own hands. We think, well, how is this going to benefit me? We don't ask God. We don't leave it in God's hands.
Yeah.
It does say, vengeance is mine, I will repay.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes us feel good about ourselves that I have done something.
Yeah, we feel good about ourselves, that we have done something, right? Yeah, that we put, basically taken justice into our own hands. And now I feel better. That's what I was saying earlier on. If somebody did something to one of my daughters, I'm willing to spend the time in prison for the rest of my life. Well, what does that do to the other daughters and even the one that has had trouble? You see the tunnel vision there? That's how we decide things. Revenge. That's why we're driven by that to the place where we don't even think about other people. We're just so driven by anger and hatred. Yeah. Why does revenge appeal to humanity? Okay, it feels like justice to us. But are we the judge? No. We're not the judge. Why do bad things happen to good people? What's wrong with that question? Okay, good. Define good people, right? Show me a good person, right? So yeah, we have to go there. Good. Yeah, but why do we deserve anything great, right? So I don't want to go there, but revenge appeals to humanity because when we hear about somebody being wronged, we think, boy, that's, we might say something like, stick it to them, they deserved it. And that's not the right way to think. Imagine if Jesus did that on the cross. Right? If anybody, we sing the song, he could have called 10,000 angels. And what if he did? No salvation. Yeah, no salvation. Thankfully, he didn't have tunnel vision in the way that we do. Actually, his tunnel vision was so much focused on the cross that the disciples actually looked at him and were amazed at his determination to go to Jerusalem. Yes. Amen. Yeah, when the Lord gets them and gets them really hard, he gets them better than we can. It's a good way to put it, Dennis. Yeah. Yeah.
God throughout all history has punished his people with evil people, and he raises them up and puts them down.
That's right.
According to what he wants to do.
Yep. God knows what he's doing, right? So let's give him time to do it. Why were Simeon and Levi the two that took up the sword? Yes, they had the same mother. So they were Dinah's brothers. And so they were going to do something about it. You don't rape our sister without us doing something about it. They don't say anything about Reuben here. I don't know. Well, we know a little bit about Reuben. But yeah, Simeon and Levi were the two that took up the sword, we're told. Why do you think they killed all the males of the city? Okay, so they wouldn't kill them back, right? Yeah, I mean, if you just take care of the two, that might create a war situation. And so while they're all feeling really bad, you take care of business. Now, we don't know how big this city or village is, right? Or I don't think we're talking about 10,000, 5,000 men here that they went in and wiped out. We don't know how big of a it's most likely a village of people, families that are here. But there were enough that they had to convince these men to go through with this circumcision thing. And so, yeah, I think they killed all the men of the city because they wanted to end this whole thing, right? They're not coming back to us when they feel better. Yeah, you can't. Right. Be like trying to fight after a surgery. It is a surgery. Yes, very personal. Yep, it's a very personal approach. Yes, they had to look right in the eyes of Shechem and Hamor and take them out. Actions have consequences, right? So, look at verse 26. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his sons, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. So apparently, when they had agreed to this, they said, okay, here's Dinah. I don't know if they whispered something to Dinah and said, we'll be back. Doesn't say. But the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. So it gives the very reason why they did this. Everybody's driven by desire. They took their sheep, their oxen, their asses, that which was in the city and that which was in the field, and all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and so forth. Do you think the sons of Jacob felt completely justified by their actions? Do you think they felt justified? I think so. I think they felt completely justified. Yes, we are justified in this. We took care of all the men because all these men, nobody else took out this guy, right? So I'm thinking they're probably thinking that way too. And all these other guys must think the same way that Shechem does. So we're going to take out everybody. I think they thought that it was spread throughout the whole group, the whole lot of them. What is troubling about Jacob's answer? Verse 30. You have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. What's troubling, Barry? Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't talk about he doesn't say like, I know Shechem did this to you, but this wasn't the way to handle it. He just says, how could you do this to me? Now I look terrible in the sight of all the Canaanites. That's what he was concerned with.
He was worried about the consequences of what was going to happen to him,
Right.
straightening out his kids or
Right.
what happened to his.
Yeah. He was concerned about the consequences of what might happen to him and not so much about the rest of them. Well, that's the thing. When their sister is defiled, as the scriptures say, when they're raped, it enrages them. And so they're going to go in defense mode, defending their sister, right? The question was, how do they go from being basically herdsmen to murderers? Yes.
Beth had just whispered something to me. When he said that, did he forget God promised, I will make of you a great nation?
Hmm.
And they're not going to be destroyed.
Right.
But also, as you mentioned earlier, if Jacob would have taken the leadership and stood before Shechem, stood before Hamor, and says, something needs to be done now, then this wouldn't have happened.
Yes, that's right. If he would have taken the lead, then we wouldn't be in this place in verse 30, right, where he's questioning the sons. If he would have just said, and I think the whole place would have said, yeah, Shechem raped the girl. That's harmed our village. It's harmed that family that's wealthy. They're going to remove their wealth from our area. That's bad. And so there's so much that could have been done here by Jacob that he did not do. And so that led to this point, but also it was brought out that Jacob was not trusting in the promises of God, right? And saying that the Lord said he's going to make of him a great nation, that you're not going to get wiped out because the Lord is here to protect you. Troubling stuff here. What was their justification for doing so? Verse 31. Well, they treat our sister like a harlot. What do you expect us to do, right? Yeah, you're right. Revenge. My wife is telling me, move down to the question. Okay, how was that an answer to his question in verse 30? How was that? What do I mean by that? If you know, okay, Jacob said to Simeon, "Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and I being few in numbers. They shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, and I and my house." And they said, "Should he deal with our sister as with an harlot?" Yeah. Right. It's like they wronged us, and so we're going to take care of him, and then everything will be okay. Right, exactly. It cycles through, right? Because actions have consequences. No matter what we do, in reacting, it's going to have some sort of a consequence. I think what we'll see from here on out is really this family. We're seeing now in this family what Israel is like. Okay, this is the beginning of Israel. And the Lord will work with this people until the end of time. Right? And it started with this family right here. And the Lord will work with them and protect them and use them and bring about his Messiah, who will die for the sins of the world and who will come again and reign as king, where every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord of the glory of God. And he will be the perfect leader, the perfect king. None of these people are. And so it just shows you here that God is able to make right all of men's wrong. But we have to do it with his help and for his glory. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for this study here tonight. It's really a study in human depravity, desire, the pursuits of what we want, whether it's lust, greed, revenge, or they're all sinful actions and pursuits when they overtake us. I pray that we will be people who lean on you, take you at your word. When you say vengeance is mine, we'll allow you to be the judge, that we will not be driven by our lust, our passion, but that we'll be communing with you, seeking your will for decisions that we make, understanding that the decisions we make will have lasting effects. Help us to walk with you, to lean on you, to seek your wisdom, and we look forward to you providing it for us as you've promised to do so. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I just want to take a few minutes here before we break for our business meeting to look at the prayer requests here tonight. We'll start with number 2 on our list.